So thank you all for coming here today, and yes, this works. Okay, I'm Ensar Acem. I'm a PhD candidate here in the Model and Intuitions Lab, and today we'll talk about 3 different studies on cooperation and cognitive styles. These studies are funded by ERC Templeton, Advanced Grant of Professor Simon Gächter, and Templeton Religion Trust grant of Onurcan Yılmaz and Ozan Işler. So I thank them all. And let's start with the outline. We'll see a very brief cognitive styles and cooperation literature with a focus on the gaps in the literature. So then we will see the general methodology across these 3 studies in this presentation with a focus on open science and behavioral methods. And lastly, we will see each study specifically in their own details. Not because I'm a very impatient person, but just to show you the underlying logic of why we do all these studies. I put the results even in the outline page. In the first study, we just test the predictive ability of cognitive styles on cooperation. And we found that, yeah, cooperation is conditional in a nutshell. And in the second study, which is the experiment 1, we try to see and we try to manipulate lots of conditions, and we found almost nothing. That's why we try to see and we try to manipulate something different with a new perspective in experiment 2. This will be a surprise, and this will not be a spoiler in the outline page. You will see it in the next 10 minutes. So this is the literature on cognitive styles and cooperation. There are 3 prevailing hypotheses. The first one is the social heuristics hypothesis, which says that cooperation is intuitive due to, since it is evolutionary adaptive, and cooperation is undermined by deliberation, reflection, or something like that. And self-control account says almost opposite of that, and it's like intuition is selfish, and we need reflection, deliberation, and self-control to hold our selfish intuitions. That's why cooperation is reflective, it says. These are very simple accounts or hypotheses. And lastly, Işler et al. Suggests the contextualized strong reciprocity model, and it says that it depends on conditions. There are lots of conditions and contexts. Therefore, we should analyze them very systematically based on different conditions, because some conditions and contexts are cooperative and the others are uncooperative. So this is the gaps in the literature. There was no predictive ability or longitudinal study to test the relationship between cognitive styles and cooperation, and there was intention behavior gaps. We cannot always trust in self-reported intentions of participants, but we should focus on behaviors, real behaviors. That's why we focus on these issues in our experiments and studies. Also, the other problem is that most of the experiments in the literature focus on, the time limit manipulations, but we know that there are some issues with them. For example, 20 seconds time delay doesn't activate reflection. It means that it doesn't differ from control group. Therefore, in the previous literature, there was no reflection condition. And we should add some well-established method to activate reflection in our experiments. Also, there are other issues like removing participants who do not comply with the manipulations, for example, time limit manipulations, time pressure, and removing them creates sampling biases according to Varain. Therefore, we shouldn't remove them in the analyses, and all the significant findings in the previous literature coming from such problematic research practices. Also, Kvarvan et al. Suggests that in their meta-analysis, the effects are very small and it only depends on emotion prime manipulation. Therefore, it requires more attention than other manipulation methods. Maybe we will focus on this. So in the 3 studies we conducted, and we still conduct the last one, we have some similar methodology. So we'll focus on them here in this page. we use behavioral economic games such as Prison's Dilemma game and Public Goods game. These are for, to measure cooperation behavior, and we incentivize the behaviors with real monetary outcomes, so that we can see real behavior of participants, and we match them with real participants always, so that we do not use deception at all in our experiments. And open science is the bare minimum in our studies in the Mint Lab. So we always pre-register from hypothesis to some stopping rule, analysis, and all. And we always share our data and materials openly, and you can follow these links to go through these materials. So this is the first study testing predictive ability of cognitive styles on cooperation. This is also my master's thesis, which is defended 3 years ago. It has 3 stages across 17 months, and in the pretest we collected their participants' analytic thinking ability with a cognitive performance task, and we also measured their fluent intelligence or fluid IQ using Raven's progressive matrices. Then later in the 7th month, we re-invited them, and 560 participants come back. They used some games, but for this study, the main game is the Prison's Dilemma game, which measures cooperation, of course. And in the 17th month, again, we measured the same moral behaviors. The focus is again in Prison's Dilemma in this presentation. We used balanced sample between believers and non-believers. Believers equal to American Christians, and non-believers are like agnostics and atheists. And we also balanced the sample between socioeconomic status and gender. So this is the cognitive performance tests. One question in the left. This is a tricky question which has one intuitive and incorrect answer. We expect participants to jump into this option, and we have also an analytic and correct answer in such questions. We asked 5 of them and measured their analytic thinking ability. Also, we use Raven's progressive matrices to measure cognitive ability, or as you can say fluid intelligence or fluid IQ. We used 3 of these questions. This is Prison's Dilemma game. We ask participants how many tokens do you want to give to the other participant, and you have 100 tokens here, and the other participants has also 100 tokens, and when you give, the given amount will be doubled for both you and the other participant. So how many tokens do you want to give? This is another measure which is called strategy method, and we measure cooperation preferences, which is social preferences in the presentation of Professor Simon. It's very similar. The other participants gives 0 or 100 tokens to you. You don't know how many, but how many tokens do you want to give to the participant E1? If participant E1 has given you 0 tokens in stage 1, you can choose 0 tokens or 100 tokens. If participant E1 has given you 100 tokens in stage 1, how many tokens do you want to give to the participants E1 in stage 2? You can again choose one of these binary options. If you give 0 and 0 in both of these questions, you are classified as free rider. And if you give 100 and 100 in both of these scenarios, you are unconditional cooperator. And if you give 0 in the first question and he gives you 0 tokens and you also gives you 0 tokens, if he gives you 100 tokens and you choose 100 in the second scenario, you are conditional cooperator because it's equal, It's just a match. And in the first option, you choose the direct opposite of what E1 gives you. You are just classified as contrarian. These are the results of the first study, and all the results come from post-test 1 for the PD cooperation outcome. And we found that cognitive reflection and performance predicted greater cooperation among non-believers. And cognitive performance was positively associated with cooperation among conditional cooperators. These are very interesting because they show that cooperation is conditional. It's not only, the relationship between cognitive style and cooperation is conditional. And we also found the direct opposite of this relationship among non-conditional cooperators. Among non-conditional cooperators, the relation between cognitive performance and cooperation level was negative. This is the second part of the presentation, and it includes 2 experiments. Let's start with the experiment 1. Based on the CSR, contextualized strong reciprocity model, we used 30 conditions. We thought that conditions are important. Everything is conditional. And 30 conditions in a high-powered study with 2 dilemma type as provision and maintenance. This is, for example, a provision competition time delay decision page, one of the 30 conditions. And in provision, you give to the group project, and it's doubled here and divided to the 4 of the participants. In maintenance, you do not take from the group project to be more cooperative. Also, we use task frame, such as this is competition game, as you see here, or cooperation, this is cooperation game, or neutral, this is token game, we say in the decision page. Also, we used 5 cognitive style manipulations, such as time pressure, time delay, emotion prime, devising training, and control group. So what we find is interesting. We found that data quality checks and manipulation checks are very successful, and yet we found null effects for main effects and interaction effects, and we also thought that null effects are robust after equivalence and Bayesian tests. We controlled loss of moderators like decision conflict, familiarity, religiosity, scarcity, socioeconomic status, and again, loss of null results. But we only found that the higher zero-sum beliefs, the lower cooperation in maintenance dilemma. So we can conclude that a high-powered study found no effect, and cooperation is driven by stable beliefs, expectations, cooperation preferences, but not the manipulations. They are not induced. They are not affected by manipulations. However, there was a new paper at the time which can explain these null results, just like a helper for us. And this is generalized social heuristics hypothesis, which is the focus of the last experiment in this presentation. It says that moral behavior is related to intuition only when there is a self-protective cues in the scenarios. Therefore, you cannot expect any intuitive cooperation or reflective cooperation in standard PD, prison's dilemma, or PGG, public goods game scenarios. Therefore, we thought that also I should say that this model do not consider reflections effect, only intuitions effect. Therefore, we will focus on this in the second experiment too, as an extension and as a test of the main part of the theory. So based on generalized social heuristics hypothesis, we try to see if self-preservation cues are necessary to elicit intuitive cooperation. Intuitive cooperation is you cooperate intuitively. That's easy. And we have 10 conditions between subject design on prison's dilemma game. So we use 5 cognitive style manipulations, such as emotion prime, time pressure, time delay, reason prime, and control group. We also have standard prisoner's dilemma game and self-preservation threat prisoner's dilemma game. So this is again a very high-powered study with 10 conditions, and this is the task you see. Let me show you side by side. This is standard sequential PD prisoner's dilemma game, which is the same as in the first study, and this is the PD with punishment threat. So there is a participant A2 here, which has 10 tokens, just like you. And after A1 decided how many tokens he gives you, this is your turn in stage 2. But in stage 2, there's participant A as an observer, and he sees only your decision and may decide to punish you. And the question is, how many tokens do you want to give participants A1 under punishment threat versus under no punishment threat? So, of course, we expect intuitive cooperation or intuition's effect in this scenario with punishment, but not with this scenario with no punishment. So this is, as I said, a study in a preregistration phase, so that we can still get your ideas, comments, questions, and critics especially. I encourage you to criticize this study so that we can still update this study. Thank you. I love to hear your comments and questions, and we can always connect through X, Blue Sky, and whatever platform you want. And you can please go to my website and let's connect each other and collaborate each other in the next days.
Is there anyone else? Because I had asked my questions already. So it's just a comment/question, a construct-related issue. You manipulate punishment. I like the idea, and I'm really curious about seeing the results already. But why did you call it self-preservation? Because you manipulate punishment, and you assume, I guess, that it will increase the motivation, right? But it may also change different motivations, like a desire for social inclusion or whatever. Like, what is the underlying idea there?
Yeah, in the generalized social heuristics hypothesis, there are three main heuristics. One is do not get harm. The other one is do not harm, especially when you can get harm back. And the other one is do not get fewer resources than others, which is the third one. So if we add punishment to the scenario, it would increase do not get harm heuristics mainly, as we believed. But if you think that it would also include something like willingness to inclusion, this could be a critics we should maybe continue. But do you really think that adding punishment would increase the willingness to inclusion more than do not get harm here?
Yeah, it may. You never know if you don't measure it, right? So if I were you, probably I would consider alternative explanations and mechanisms there, and maybe include them as like a control variable or something. Like social inclusion was the first thing that came to my mind, but it can also be like negative effect, positive effect, whatever, like the anxiety. So I assume this may be a question from the audience and reviewers, like when you finish data. So maybe you can really consider about all these potential outcomes of punishment manipulation, and then maybe include some of the most important measures in your study, like just control and see maybe.
Yeah. Actually, we use some manipulation checks, like how I don't remember the exact question, but it's like measuring how much they feel do not get harm heuristics and how much they feel do not get fewer resources heuristics in the generalized social heuristics hypothesis. So yeah, and I can say that in my PhD thesis, I also try to detect such heuristics in such scenarios. We just manipulate some scenarios like, dictator game versus ultimatum game. There's a and we expect that these heuristics will be high in such scenarios with punishment. And also we try to develop a questionnaire for such heuristics with 3 subscales for each heuristics. And then we can measure these heuristics in all such scenarios. We can also compare with other explanations. That's a very good question. Thank you. Any other question? Please criticize. It still needs some critics to update. Okay, then it's a very well-established experiment. Then I thought.